Okay, cool. We'll go ahead and get started. Well, hi everybody. My name's Grayson. Nice to see you guys. Nice to see people with cameras. I am a programming lead for Austin Design Week, so I'm very happy to welcome you guys to one of our events. This is Austin Design Week's 6th year, so obviously last year it was all virtual because of the pandemic, and now we get to do kind of a fun hybrid event. And obviously you guys found one of virtual events. I just want to call out, so we've had about 80 events going on this week. Obviously today is the second to last day, and tomorrow will be our last day with our closing at 2 to 5. So I would love to see you guys at a couple more of our events. Our schedule's on our website, or you can use this bit.ly link. The major event to call out, let's see. Yeah, I'll go ahead and enable that. The major event to call out is just our closing tomorrow. It's our Futures Fair. It's 2 to 5 downtown. It's on the corner of 4th Street, right across from Halcyon, if you guys know that. It's a really cool event because you'll get to meet a lot of attendees and hosts. And also we have a bunch of creative professionals in different companies that'll be represented there. And usually they're looking to show off their work, find people to work with, or just, network in general now that we can see each other in person. That's an outdoor event that'll be on a rooftop too. So that way we have plenty of air moving around. I wanted to thank our sponsors. Actually, on the next slide, Austin Design Week is completely volunteer based, and we're a nonprofit. And so when you support our sponsors, they support us, which is great because doing events like this costs money, and Zoom licenses cost money and things like that. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. I know that Fiona's got a great presentation prepared for you guys, and as she goes through it, if anything comes up, put it in the chat, and then I can save that and send it to her later. Other than that, that's pretty much it for me, and I just want to pass it off to her, and thank you guys for being here.
Hey y'all, thank you so much for joining. I was poking through the names. I recognize a few of y'all from Instagram. It's crazy that we live in this world where I can recognize people from the internet. But I really appreciate y'all coming. I'm super excited to talk about designing change through creative empowerment. Creative empowerment is something I'm super excited about. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So I'll start with a quick little intro. Who am I? My name's Fee. I'm a designer, artist, and creativity coach based in Austin with a passion for creative empowerment and self-expression. So my background is actually in brand design, graphic design, and also tech. I spent 10 years in the tech world and 4 years in design leadership in the tech world, and left that and started a creative coaching business. And just generally really love exploring the intersection of creativity and personal development. I've had my own journey with creativity. I went to a really fancy art school in New York, graduated with a lot of tools, but a lot of trauma, and have spent most of my adult life coming back home to my creativity and finding a place where my creativity feels like really abundant, really safe, really alive. And that's kind of how I ended up here, honestly. So let's play a game. Who are you? If you are available to this, I would love if you turned on your camera and set your view to gallery so that we can see everyone's face. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I feel like a little bit of a noob with Zoom, so forgive me if it takes a minute to figure this kind of thing out. Ooh, okay, I figured it out. Okay. So let's play the game. Raise your hand if you consider yourself creative. Cool. It looks like, I'm like scrolling through. I want to see everybody. Okay. Looks like a lot of you identify as creative. Cool. Raise your hand if you're a designer. Okay. So we got some designers. I'm going to move this little toolbar over here so I can scroll through. Okay. Raise your hand if you're an artist. Okay, now we start to dwindle down. We have some people that define themselves as artists, some that don't. Okay. If you're an entrepreneur, raise your hand. We got some like hesitant hand raises. That's how I feel too sometimes. I'm like, beautiful. Raise your hand if you're a problem solver. Okay, more hands up. Beautiful. I'm gonna keep going. This is a longish game, okay? So raise your hand if you think some people are creative and other people are not creative. Wow, y'all be woke, okay. Raise your hand if you think design should be exclusive territory and managed only by people that are trained in it. Damn, I really thought some of y'all were gonna raise your hands with this one. Nobody? Okay. Okay, wow, okay. Raise your hand if you think artists and entrepreneurs are cut from the same cloth, like very similar profiles. Cool, it seems like 50-50. Raise your hand if you think there's a time to be creative and a time to be pragmatic. Yeah, looks like 50-50, cool. Raise your hand if you think art is indulgent, excessive, or non-critical. Cool, again, y'all be woke, all right. Raise your hand if you think art is critical, either personally or culturally. I think there's like one or two more of these. Raise your hand if you think creativity is by nature chaotic. Beautiful, yeah. There's a lot of 50-50s in some of these, it's cool. Raise your hand if you think creativity is actually organized and structured. We got some, cool. Yeah, creativity can be both chaos and structure. And then raise your hand if you think creativity must be outcome oriented to be valuable. Like you have to create something tangible in order for it to be useful. Cool. Oh wait, geez, I have a lot of questions. I really want to know y'all. Raise your hand if you think originality and newness are required for creativity. Okay, that was like no one responded to that one. Y'all don't think you have to be original. It's cool. Well, thanks for playing, y'all. If you want to put your thing back on speaker view, the rest of my conversation is going to be mostly slides. Beautiful. So there's two things that I think we can take away from this exercise. One, everyone experiences and understands creativity differently. And two, like creativity is kind of hard to define. It's in some ways like got a lot of polarity baked into it. You've got tangible, intangible, chaos, organization. You got all sorts of people, like multidisciplinary people that are defined as creatives. And so, yeah, creativity is pretty complex and it's nuanced. And that's totally okay. Through creative exploration, we actually get to expand our ability to hold that nuance. And in fact, it's a requirement that we learn how to tolerate, hold, and celebrate more nuance if we want to design a more inclusive future. Now, why is that? It's because culture is nuanced, truth is nuanced, and people are nuanced. We live in a world that's just formed by nuance. And creativity invites us to reject black and white thinking and embrace the subtleties and nuance of our full human experience. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to talk about creativity in a way that you likely haven't studied it before, especially in our traditional structures around like art schools and boot camps and career paths. We don't often talk about the like psychology and philosophy around creativity and how that can really support change in our world. So what we're going to discuss today, we have like four larger quadrants of the next hour. First, we're going to talk about what is creative empowerment? What does it mean? Then we're going to talk about how we can empower ourselves and others creatively. And we'll have a little break within there to discuss a question prompt that I have up. And also I'll answer any questions. If you feel so bold as to show your camera and ask me with your face, I would love that. Otherwise, feel free to type it in the chat. And then we'll jump into how does creativity shape change? And then what can a more creative future hold? And then we'll wrap up with another Q&A and discussion panel. So first, what is creative empowerment? Creative empowerment is owning your power to create. So we are all creative beings. It seems like you all agree. One of my questions up front was asking about if some people or all people are creative. It seems like we all agree that everyone is creative. We have these like beautiful vessels to support our creativity. We're so intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, and like physically dense creatures. And we all have this innate power to create anything out of our circumstances. If you all have like even peeped into modern culture, I've noticed that like manifestation has become a sort of like pop term, and manifestation is really pointing at this, is that we all have the power to create the lives that we want. And so creative empowerment is really about tuning into that power and owning it. Creative empowerment is also about inviting full self-expression from yourself and from others. And so self-expression can come through all sorts of ways. It can happen through language, it can happen through your traditional art mediums, but it can also happen through our bodies, like our sound, our voice, our ability to create sound, our ability to create music, our bodies and movement, and moving things through the forms that we allow our bodies to take. All of this fits into self-expression. And actually self-expression has a lot of different useful properties to it. We do healing through self-expression. We find community through self-expression. We find clarity through self-expression. And so creative empowerment is really inviting the fullness of that self-expression so that we, again, touch that nuance and that, all the subtleties within the full human experience. And then creative empowerment is supporting a practice of play. So if you know a little bit about how the brain structure works and like what makes mammals mammals, we actually have a part of our brain that allows us to practice play. And what has made humans elevated from other mammals is that when you have a marriage of play and like the intellect that we're capable of, that's where innovation is really able to come alive. And so supporting a practice of play is like bringing in the second half to the intellectual piece that we're so often relying on in terms of like exploring innovation. Creative empowerment is about owning your life and the endless possibilities available through your ability to create. So with that ownership of creative empowerment comes responsibility. And then with responsibility comes innovation and change. So we don't feel motivated to change anything. We don't feel inspired to change anything if we don't feel responsible for it. And so that ownership is really like the tipping point to that responsibility, which leads to innovation and change. So how can we empower ourselves and others creatively? I'm going to first take a sip of my drink. So I'm curious, I'm going to poke for those of y'all that have your camera. How many of y'all are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs? I first discovered this in my design research time. But this is a sort of like psychological framework around how humans are motivated behaviorally. And we are living in a time where most people in at least our culture are starting to have their psychological needs met, their safety needs met. More and more we're seeing belongingness and love needs are being met. And then we can really start to open ourselves up to self-actualization. And that's where creativity and innovation really lives. And so I bring this up because if we want to support ourselves and others creatively, we have to make sure that our other psychological needs are met. It's really unfair to say like, let's all get creative when some people don't have those basic needs met. And so to embrace creativity, we really need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. And so step one for creative empowerment really is creating stability for yourself and safety for yourself. And notice I use the word create because it's still an act of creation. And so creating stability and safety can be, for yourself, can be whatever you want it to be, right? People are making up their careers more and more. It could be fun to create structure within your life. So really like honing that in for yourself and if possible for the people that you love. And then also loving one another and participating in community, really helping people in that psychological need of belonging. So that's step one for helping yourself and others towards creative empowerment. From here, we can talk about expansion and growth. So once your basic needs are met, then we can start talking about self-actualization and fulfillment. This is also the part in my discussion where I start to like overuse gifts. So just like forewarning, this is like one of like 25 gifts or something. So how to expand yourself creatively. Number one, get curious. So ask questions about the world around you, get curious about yourself, try new things just to see how you might react, and journal as a way to explore your inner world. So for those of you that are designers professionally or researchers professionally, we have so many tools around like getting data and being curious. And a lot of that is projected outwards or projected towards like our user base or our audience. And I think it's beautiful that we are building more and more practices for getting curious about others and getting curious about others specifically in the process of creation. But reflecting that back inwards is super valuable for expanding yourself creatively. The more we can get curious, the more we can build awareness around what we like, what we don't like, where we want things to go, like how we want to shape our lives. If we're only exposed to a limited view of things, like we don't even know what's available. So getting curious can sound really abstract, but I love the practice of just like putting myself in new experiences, traveling by myself. There's a practice that I know a lot of people like, which is like having a day once a week where you leave your house with no plan and just let your intuition guide you and let the universe guide you, I guess. And so just getting curious and having a practice to reflect back. So obviously putting yourself out there, trying new things, but journaling or creating space to self-reflect and ask yourself questions like, did I like that? Did I hate that? What do I want more of? What do I want less of? And yeah, really like the question marks is where all of creativity kind of begins, right? The second way to expand yourself creatively is to bear witness. So create space to witness your thoughts and feelings, like literally create nothingness, like enter a void, sit in a room before you go to bed, like just don't fill up your time with so much like do, and allow spaciousness to like create a world where you can reflect on your thoughts and feelings. Part of bearing witness is also expressing these thoughts and feelings through words, movement, screaming, crying, tantrums, laughter, really whatever floats your boat. Like allow yourself to witness yourself in your human experience. And that means like not bottling everything up. And then witness the stories you're telling yourself about who you are, what your life is like. We have a lot of stories that kind of like run subconsciously on autopilot, and allowing yourself to even like look at those is huge because we can't move past the things that we aren't aware of. So bearing witness to your own human experience is super valuable for expanding yourself creatively. Get present. So the world in front of you is so rich with goodness and darkness, right? But getting present with it is key to enlightening your creativity. You can also check in with your senses often. So your senses are the bridge between you and the world around you. And it's the easiest way, at least for me, to get present. Is like, what am I seeing, feeling, tasting, smelling? That's going to immediately drop you into your body and into the present moment. And creativity doesn't live in I didn't write this, but creativity doesn't live in the past, and creativity doesn't live so far ahead in the future. Creativity is like when you really start to play with like what's in this immediate space, what's in front of you, whether it be like thoughts, feelings, or like physicality, but creativity doesn't exist in the past. A practice for getting present also, you can notice and get inspired by one beautiful thing. So even if you're in a really shitty situation, challenge yourself to find one beautiful thing and like allow yourself to get inspired by it. And oftentimes that's really like taking in the fullness of it. So taking in like really being present with it, taking in the sensory experience of it and allowing it to kind of like consume you, allowing yourself to fall in love with it. And then get present by creating new circumstances with your current emotional and physical state. So we're actually quite malleable beings, and anything that you're feeling emotionally or physically can often be changed with creativity. So I can challenge myself to creatively make a shitty situation less shitty. And I do that quite often. So yeah, allow yourself to play with your present moment and see what's possible. And then the last one, practice play. So discovery is often the result of play. And pleasure can be such a valuable compass in play. Like play should feel good. And so check in with what it is that you desire, what feels good. You can lean back into your sensory experience to figure out like what it is that you want and what feels good, and play within that. Like there are so many ways to play with your environment. Like even as a designer, something I love to do is like, I'm also a Virgo, so I'm like a little perfectionist, but like moving things around in my environment and creating like little micro moments and finding pleasure out of playing with the objects that are in front of me. And just like engaging with the little kid that's within me. So we all have that little kid within us that wants to play, that's curious, that wants to break things. And like, we often tell ourselves that that's not appropriate. And it's actually more appropriate than you think, and can be inappropriate in a lot of environments. And so allowing yourself to play with that a little bit more. And honestly, just doing things for the fun of it. I think we tend to overschedule our lives, tend to ask ourselves often, like, what's the outcome of this? What am I going to get out of this? And a lot of times fun for just the sake of it is what's going to open up your creativity, and even like what's going to open up your ideas and help you discover new things for yourself, and help you discover new ideas, and help you discover a roadmap for your next creative projects or endeavors. And supporting other people's creative expansion and empowering other people's creatively, it looks a lot like all these other things that you would do to support yourself. So getting curious about others, asking people questions, being like genuine in your curiosity, bearing witness to their experience. So not turning people down or like shutting people off when they're trying to self-express, obviously within like boundaries, being present with people. So often we're on our phones or distracted or thinking about the past or thinking about the future. But when we want to support people's creativity, like we get to be present with their experience and hold them in that. And then practicing play, like playing with people is huge. And I got to see this a lot in my corporate life as well. Like the moments when we got to like sit around a table and play was a lot of times when we came up with really, really good ideas. But also we empower others through our empathy. And so some other things that you can do to empower people creatively is practice deep listening, creating emotional safety for them to express themselves, and encouraging that self-expression, even when it isn't pretty or makes you a little like uncomfortable, obviously within healthy boundaries. But I can notice for myself that I want to shut off people's self-expression if I find it cringy. But actually, like when we hold people in that self-expression is when we empower them to own their creativity and own the fullness of their human experience. We can also be the example. So embodying our creativity, inspiring others by how we move, inspiring others by being present, being playful. I don't even remember what I said before, but just embodying those things and inspiring others by how we do it is huge. And then sharing our knowledge and our tools. So like if you are a trained designer and know about design principles, teaching people about design principles and teaching people about processes. As a designer, I learned so many helpful like mind mapping tools and processes for finding like structure and order out of chaos and getting more information out of people and helping people understand their own experience more. Like that stuff is so valuable outside of the workplace, and helping people like learn those things is super valuable. And also whatever you use to learn about the world around you and create from it, like share that knowledge, share that experience, and share those tools, because that's going to help people broaden their language for exploring their own creativity. So this is the first little break. This is a Q&A. And also if any of you feel excited to answer the question, how are you fostering your creativity? How are you supporting others in their creativity? I would love to know. I also feel a little confused about where the chat is. Oh, here it is. Ooh, I see people talking about regular walks. I do that too. Playing with children. Challenging myself to embrace movement. Yes, I'm curious what's feeling challenging. Talking to others. Oh, collecting colorful leaves. I love that. Noticing nature is huge. Ooh, somatic release yoga. I don't know about that, but I'm going to have to know about that. Cultivating hobbies where it's safe to fail. Yes, I just started ceramics and I fail all the time and it's so fun. Ooh, morning pages. Yes, I love this. Meditation, creating opportunities that move towards intention rather than transaction. Oh my God, yes. Removing financial language from creative conversations, ROI. Oh my God, that's huge. That's, if you're doing that in the workplace, like congratulations, that's such an accomplishment. Writing a book and not giving myself a timeline. Oh, I love that. These are such beautiful shares. Thank you all so much. The perfect square. I'm gonna have to write that down. I love kids' books. Anybody else? I'm also happy if any of this like left you all with any questions. Obviously there'll be another Q&A at the end, but if you have any questions, also happy to answer them. If not, we can keep going. Differentiate kindness from being nice. Yeah, that's huge. Being nice is not always a blessing for ourselves or others. Beautiful. I'm gonna keep going. I hope I didn't, I'm gonna like give a 20-second like pause from my talking to make sure that if anyone wanted to turn on their camera and talk, that I'm not talking over you.
I do have a quick question. Like when can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you, Liz.
Okay. So this question kind of made me realize that sometimes I'm like actively not allowing myself play and not allowing myself to be creative. And I think that I'm scared of not being creative and not being good enough. I don't know if you have any suggestions or anything that can help me get over that.
Liz, I feel you because that was like a huge part of my challenge with like leaving an art school where so much of the focus was being good and then getting into a creative career where so much of the focus is being good and then having to have a practice where like I'm not worried about being good. And something that was super helpful for me. So I love using newsprint because like it's cheap and it's abundant and you can get like really big format where you can get more expressive. And I will often create little games with my creative practice where like, there's no way it can be good. So like, as long as I show up, like it's not going to be good. So like I'm right-handed. So I'll be like, okay, let's draw with my left hand. Or an exercise will be like, I'll hold like a crystal or something with one hand with my eyes closed and like draw based off of feeling with the other. And just like creating these games where like, I know it's not going to be good. So I don't have to worry about trying to make it good. And that's actually like creating, it's created a practice where it's like, it's fun to show up. And ultimately, like when I do decide I want to make something that's trying to be good, I'm like way more loose in my approach. Does that feel helpful?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. I mean, that's like something that so many people struggle with. And yeah, just like creating circumstances where you don't have to be good, like trying a new hobby or like me picking up clay. Like there's no way I'm going to be good. I mean, maybe, but you know, it's like starting something new, you don't have to be good. So yeah. Is there anybody else? Ooh, participate without planning. I love that. I just saw that in the chat. Beautiful. I'm going to keep going then. Thank you so much, Liz. And thank you for everyone that posted in the chat. This is all really, really lovely. Okay, so how does creativity shape change? I'm excited because, like I said, I'm about to get into like Giphy world right now. So creativity facilitates newness. So Creativity facilitates innovation, which is new ideas, and creativity facilitates healing, which is a new awareness for ourselves and for the possibilities within ourselves. Creativity facilitates community, which is new connection. Creativity facilitates expression, which is new language. And then creativity facilitates expansion, which is new territory. So creativity really opens us up to change because it's like the primer to creating new things. Inspiration feeds innovation. So inspiration is the most valuable asset and precursor to innovation. Nothing innovative happens when you're not inspired. And when someone's inspired, they're at the pinnacle or peak of understanding. So I often like to break up words. And if you think about inspire, spire is a pinnacle or peak. And when someone is inspired, they're really at this peak of understanding. They're ripe for innovating. And inspiration comes from innovation, where we solve, innovation comes from inspiration. That's flipped, but we solve problems and create lasting change from inspiration. So inspiration is tied to creativity, and creativity is what's facilitating change and what's facilitating innovation. Creativity tolerates and even glamorizes risk. So any change that happens rarely occurs without risk and some sort of surrender into the unknown. So all great things, anyone that's created anything big and even small, it has to face the unknown. And I experience this personally in my creative practice all the time. In fact, I'm working on a clay piece right now where there's this thing I want to do. And I know if I approach it, I might either fuck the whole thing up or make a really beautiful thing. And so approaching that unknown is a huge part of creativity, and tolerating risk is part of change and part of innovation. So creativity can seem foolish in how much it gambles on itself, but it's kind of the main path to creating new things and innovation and change. And so there's not many environments, not many things in our really structured, outcome-oriented, success-oriented culture that tolerate risk, but creativity tolerates risk beautifully. Basically, creativity is curiosity in motion. So what can a more creative future hold? So thanks to the internet, we've been collecting a lot of evidence already about what's possible when we build systems that encourage more creativity. Everybody is a creative, especially now with a cell phone, with social media, with all these tools to create new things, and a lot has happened. So social media has really expanded our ability to self-express. And I mean, we're kind of inundated with self-expression. Everybody is expressing all the time on social media, and it can be a little exhausting, but it's super cool. We can see in meme culture that there's now a form of collective expression. So people are resonating with things, and it's creating a collective experience around what people are thinking and feeling. And then we can see with movements like Me Too and Black Lives Matter that creativity in the future and leaning into technology and in this new world facilitates community and facilitates bottom-up impact. So people have a voice now. People have a voice now more than ever. And now more than ever, people are really able to band together. We are creating a world that supports more expression than ever. People are equipped with more tools to create new media, accessible creative platforms, and they have the ability to reach a global audience like never before. And this is going to just continue to rise. This is just going to continue to expand. All these big media companies have plans to continue to make expression more available to people. And people are just, with these new tools, are able to take it offline as well. I'm in my 30s, even just interacting with people that are in their 20s, I could see how much more expressed they are and how much more creative they are by just growing up in this new world that we're building. I don't know if y'all watch the Facebook thing about the metaverse, kind of creeps me out, but he talks about us moving into the creator economy. And I actually think that's a really beautiful lens. Like, we're all going to be able to create more of what it is that we desire, create a living based off of what we're making and creating. And one of the quotes early on in his, this is Mark Zuckerberg, inside of Mark Zuckerberg, but one of the quotes that he shares is that the basic story of technology in our lifetimes is how it has given us the power to express ourselves and experience the world with even greater richness. And so the creator is really coming to the rise as an archetype and as a person in our society and culture. And more people are making a living based off of creativity, which is beautiful. And there's a lot of opportunity within that. We're also creating a world that supports more equality. So social movements are easier to initiate and participate now than ever. Resources and wealth are more accessible now than ever. As I was just saying, like, we are moving into a world where the creator, it's the rise of the creator, and the creator has a huge impact in how things are moving, what social movements are being created, what messages are being shared, what's becoming viral. I mean, the creator really has so much power. NFTs is like wild to me, y'all. I don't know too much about it yet. It stands for non-fungible token. I'm gonna turn on the gallery view because I want to see some faces. How many of y'all know about NFTs or participate in them? Okay, we got some hands. Yeah, I mean, this is like prime example of how creativity is creating new social movements, like distributing wealth, creating more equality, more opportunity for people. It's basically like, from my understanding, like crypto trading cards. It's like a digital form of art trading and collecting. And people are making insane amounts of money through NFTs right now. Like, people are making digital art and bringing in so much abundance for themselves and for their families and communities. And it's really like the type of creative innovation that makes people's heads spin and is going to be the norm soon. And this is just, these are the type of opportunities that are available and abundant by leaning into our creativity. Basically, the possibilities of our creativity and your creativity are endless. So I would love to know, like, what do you want to see created in our collective future? What are you creating for yourself? And also, if you have any questions, I planned a little bit of a shorter event, so we have 20 minutes. So we can either end it early or have a longer discussion, but I am here. So I'd love to hear from you all. I'm gonna open up the chat as well. SNL is a good explanation of NFTs. Is that what that was about? I'm gonna have to look it up. No questions, no comments. Who's
I guess I have a question. What's the link between like creativity and, like, in your experience, and like flow?
Creativity and flow. What do you mean by flow? Like flow states?
Yeah, like the flow state. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I find super interesting is that there are a lot of ways that we enter flow state, and it's often through our body. And people don't think of creativity as a sort of like embodied experience, but when you allow your body to be in flow state is when a lot of like rich ideas can come through. So it's why people have really good ideas when they take a shower or are cleaning or are going on long walks. It's because you're allowing your body to enter a flow state, and that's creating the environment for your imagination to run wild. And so if you are struggling with like coming up with ideas or are lacking inspiration, I often recommend that people allow their bodies to enter a flow state, and that can be in whatever way you like it. So I love to go on walks, but there's a lot of ways where you can just kind of like enter autopilot, and that is a really helpful way to engage your creativity. Does that answer your question?
It does, thanks.
Yeah, my pleasure. But I'm curious, what sort of practices do you imagine applying?
I mean, so I'm really super interested in like the movement piece, that because my thing, like my body's like constantly on breaks, right? So action wise, so finding ways to alleviate those breaks, because so much of what you're talking about was like the felt sense and the embodied sense. And that's so cool. And also, as someone who exists almost entirely in the cognitive space and has like shut down, I don't know, I don't want to say like urges, but like the kinesthetic, like non-cognitive space. And so much of what you've talked about today has been more about no, like embrace that kinesthetic that like flutters on the edges of the consciousness that you may not be aware of. And it's through inhabiting that space and existing in that space that's where, you know, you're going to discover more.
Totally. And actually, as you talk about it, I'm thinking about like how we can apply this to work environments, and especially like people that are in creative roles or in roles that are responsible for like business development and innovation. And our like workspace does not really support that like embodied approach to creativity. But like you also see like people pacing hallways. Like I remember at my old job, the like COO was like constantly pacing when he was like trying to come up with ideas. And so just like allowing yourself to apply that to the workspace too, if you do have a creative like career or a career where you are like having to come up with ideas, like, yeah, leaning into your body, even though we're kind of encouraged to sit at our desk all day. Yeah, thank you for the question. I loved it.
Fiona, can I springboard on that?
I would love to.
I have noticed during the pandemic that it is the constraints and sometimes even the tension and the fear that fostered creativity for me. So I had a neighbor in the height of the pandemic when nobody was going anywhere. We would call, and our conversation of utilizing, reutilizing, or using what we had available to us fostered so much weird creativity between the two of us. And when snowvid happened and I got stuck in this and all the power went off and I kind of got stuck in this mode of panic, I sat there with it for a little while, and I have a lot of windows in my house, and so I closed them all off for the heat, and I realized there was no light, and that really disturbed me. But I just sat down, and every time I had a moment of light, I wrote down all the things I would do next when the power came back on. And it focused me. And I found these old boxes of bubble wrap. And I ended up bubble wrapping all my windows, which warmed the temperature of my house. But I never would have thought of that without those constraints. So I just want to put it out there. Sometimes when you feel like you're in a constrained place or a place of not necessarily emotional safety, you can still kind of break out of that in a way you might not expect.
Yes, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And I think that points to the polarity in the nature of creativity, right? Like creativity can come from joy and safety, and it can also come from challenge. And I think where actually both of those things meet in what we were talking about is like being present. So you could have chosen to just like be bundled up and read a book and like curse every other word, or like, you know, you were present with your experience and present with like what was available and what was around you. And so I think that's a really beautiful example of applying creativity in a challenging time.
And it didn't start there. It didn't start with, oh my gosh, I need to be creative. It started with really intense negative emotional and fear. But I hit this point where I just turned. I don't know what caused that to happen, but it just, it's like, okay, what do I have? What can I do? And it was really, a part of it was getting curious in the dark, not knowing where things were, poking around. I mean, literally in the dark, but figuratively too. I think we can do that when we think that we can't create. There's a space in there where you really can.
Yeah.
Creativity. You challenge your notions.
Yeah. You're also making me think that I need to have bubble wrap in my like apocalyptic preparation.
Well, and the weird thing is I did not even realize at the moment. I live in a neighborhood that has a bunch of firefighters and people like that in my neighborhood. I never knew that until after that. So I thought, gosh, there were resources all around me I didn't even see or know about.
Oh, wow.
Because I didn't know my neighbors, but just a pause for thought. Because I think for me, the pandemic pause has opened up a lot more opportunity by constraints.